Welcome all. Today we are going to understand about what is meant by the shared responsibility model. So in order to understand shared responsibility model, first of all consider a scenario that an organization has decided and is evaluating this public cloud services and its offering in terms of the how it affects the cost, the ease of the use, the privacy, security and the compliance. Now these are the different cloud the offerings which we have. Now the customer may also, and it is very equally important that customer should consider how the security and the compliances are managed by the cloud provider and who will enhance or enable a safe computing solution or a platform for their application. Now, there is a general misconception by many organizations that they consider that once we have moved to the public cloud computing environment, so most of the security of their data shift under the shoulder of the CSP, which includes both the security and the compliance responsibility. But that is not the case. In fact, a division of the responsibility exists, and it is very much important to understand this shared responsibility model, which is essential for both the customers and the who are moving to the cloud. The cloud provider offers considerable advantages for securing and providing a compliance effort as compared to the on-prem, but these advantages do not completely takes off the responsibility from the customer hand. So they still hold the responsibility for protecting their users, their application and the services offering which they have. So these securities from the cloud service provider are alone not sufficient. The customer or the organization has to fine tune these responsibilities based on their part of the execution. Now the question is how we can understand which responsibility is with the customer and which are the responsibility which is managed by the CSP. So the shared responsibility model ensures the cloud workloads are run securely and in a well-managed way where both the parties understand their responsibility properly. Added on in the context and depend on the services which they are using. So the cloud provider is responsible for some aspect of the workload management, whereas the customer or the end user is responsible for the other aspect of the workload management. And in some cases, both share a common responsibility to make the entity secure and compliant. So on the one end, if you can see, we have the different offerings. These are the SaaS, PaaS and infrastructure as a service. And a cross competition has been given for the on-prem. On the left hand side, the responsibilities are marked in the blue color and their major groups has been categorized into a yellow color. If you see the complete box, these are the complete blue box, these are the responsibility held by the customer. A light blue box, these are the responsibility that is held by the Microsoft or a cloud provider. Now before going deep, let us try to understand briefly on what these different offerings are. So when we talk about infrastructure as a services, so this require the most user management of the out of all the cloud services. The user is responsible for managing the operating system, hardcore operating system, the data and the application. So overall it requires the most user management because it gives more control. Next is the PaaS offering. So this requires a little less user management. The cloud provider only manages the operating system on behalf of the user and expose a kind of services that will use this underlying operating system compute facility and provide this compute services to the end user. It means a layer of abstraction over the OS. You don't have a RDP access, but still you are able to host your application and serve your end user. So here the user is responsible for the applications and the data they run and store, not for the operating system. The last one is the SaaS offering. So this requires the least amount of the management. And this can be assumed to be the services like Hotmail and Gmail, where the users are just the end user, they don't manage the application. So what they are responsible is only for the data, and the cloud provider is responsible for managing everything. So this segregation of the responsibility is very much important to ensure that the workload which they are deploying to the cloud are managed correctly and there is no confusion between who share what responsibility, and at the end they does not suffer any downtime. Now let us go back and a little bit explain on this responsibility and cross compare it with the different offering which we have just discussed, that is SaaS, PaaS and infrastructure as a service. When we talk about information and the data, so it is the responsibility and the customer will be accountable for it to identify, label and classify their information and their data. So what Microsoft can do maximum, it can facilitate do this classification by providing the add-on tools, like for the office there is a lockbox and there is a DLP protection, data loss protection, prevention and protection for the Office 365 and the Dynamics 365 as a SaaS solution. Same for the PaaS solutions, there we have Azure Right Management Services. And when it comes to the infrastructure as a service model, so the user or it is the customer's responsibility to configure and protect the data that is stored and transmitted. A misconfigured server can affect how the data that is stored in the service is affecting any compliance or not. So the compliance requires that the customer audit all the deployed infrastructure as a service solutions like VMs within their complete solution. Likewise, for managing the devices, so Microsoft offers the services like Microsoft Intune that provides a secure device management, mobile application management as well as PC management capability. But it is up to the customer and he will be accountable for how he uses the services and configure it to provide the best out of it. Next comes the account creation and the identity policies and other things related to the identity. So this is again when we talk about it, this falls under the bucket of the customers. Now the other thing is identity and directory or the access management. So as we know that user and identity management is one of the core services that any organization works to provide in a seamless fashion and in a way that is simple to use and easy to manage. So this service offering, that is IAM, the identity and access management, provides the user the ability to access and use resources in their environment. It is a kind of glue between who and what, means who is accessing and what he is accessing. So that relationship it helps build. The offerings from the Microsoft such as Azure Active Directory, multi-factor authentication, identity protection, the robust role-based access control and Azure Active Directory. These are to name a few, they provide the ability to provision and maintain all these identity and make sure they are secure enough to be used in our production environment, that is production ready. So when it comes to the application level control or security, we have the PaaS offerings. So here it reduces the customer's responsibility in terms of maintaining the security by providing a more comprehensive secure solution this is managed by the cloud service provider. But again, it requires the customer to configure the service correctly, but offer a more comprehensive security capability and integration with the other solutions such as identity management. Whereas if the customer is not using any managed solution, just like the infrastructure as a service model, so here the customers are responsible for protecting and securing the OS, the application layer of the VM they deploy from the attacks and any compromises. For example, if an infrastructure as a service deployment goal is to establish a web service offering, then the administrator is responsible for securing the VM as well as the web server, which requires a skill or expertise in several security domains. Again, when we talk about the network controls, these are the different offerings. These can be the virtual network, load balancing, the DNS, the gateway. These controls provide a mean for the service to communicate and interoperate. If you are in the SaaS offering, it's fully managed by Microsoft. If you are in the PaaS offering, this is somehow managed by Microsoft. That is in case of the PaaS solution. So most of the network control configuration is done by the service provider. But yeah, here we have also flexibility to fine tune it as per the need. In case of infrastructure solution, the customers share the responsibility with service provider to deploy, manage, and secure and configure the network solution which is to be implemented. So when it comes to operating system, these are nothing but the host infrastructure. So this responsibility includes a kind of configuration of the different parameters, the management and securing of the compute, the virtual host, container, service fabric, auto scaling. Apart from that, we have storages in terms of objects, the CDN from where we download all our static files for the website, the file storage, and the last, the platform services which they offer in itself. So the provider will operate and secure the host services such as the OS of the services. This will be for the managed services such as SaaS and PaaS. But again, when it comes to the infrastructure, it has to be done by the customer. Physical security of the data center in terms of host, networking, and the other responsibility, this is completely with the Microsoft and is being taken off from the customer. Thank you. So at the end we have a quiz. Try to attempt the quiz and share the answer in the comment box. Request you to please subscribe the channel and stay tuned and have engaged learning. Thank you.